Hello and welcome everyone for another episode of the Culture Nerd Podcast. This week we're going to be talking about a fun little Teen Titans Go episode that occurred over the weekend. Their special 365th episode titled 365, which had a fun little 3-minute snippet of the Titans meeting with Zack Snyder, and then a bunch of fun stuff kind of followed it from there. So let's jump right in it and let's talk about it. All right. So, what do you think of the episode? I mean, obviously, let's just jump right into it. Teen Titans Go is kind of
I
the hit and
saw,
miss for
I saw the Zack Snyder clip of it and that whole rigmarole. It feels like the perfect answer to a Teen Titans, right? Like Teen Titans was the show that never really was. We never got to see the full arc of what we wanted it. Halfway through, it went chibi. And Zack Snyder was the same deal. Here's the guy that never really got to do the thing he wanted. He eventually did it, but now he's not there anymore. I just felt like it was a perfect storm of events.
Yeah, it was super silly. And I'm kind of right there with you. Teen Titans itself, as a show, was it was cut short. I think it had 4 or 5 seasons, and then they had their little side movie, The Trouble in Tokyo, and they were kind of like leading into another season, and then they got canceled for some reason. Fast forward a handful of years, Teen Titans Go comes out, and it's not a continuation, but it's kind of the same cast, the same crew, but more aimed toward younger audiences. The caveat, though, is that my son used to love watching the show a lot when he was a lot younger in the earlier seasons, and every time I would watch it with him, there were so many of these meta jokes, these adult humor jokes, these little Easter eggs, these things that are clearly meant for older audiences. But it's very much in the vein of a lot of those kind of like 80s cartoons, where the cartoon itself was too mature for. It had some jokes that were a little mature for kids, so it went over their heads. But the audience that it was aimed for, the adults, they got it just fine. And it really felt like it was one of those kind of shows where there's fun stuff for everyone who's watching.
It also felt like it came at the right time. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, of all those superhero shows, right? Like, you had Batman the animated series, you had Superman the animated series, the bookends of cartoons, but then there was like X-Men Evolution, and then Teen Titans was on not too far after. Because
Yeah.
I want to remember, I feel like it came on, it was on WB for a hot minute too. It was on Cartoon Network, but I feel like it played on both for a while.
I feel like that might be the case. I can't remember, to be honest. I know that when we were younger, it came about in our later high school years, if not at the end of high school for us.
Yeah.
I remember we watched it, and it was a lot of fun. But it was also like a show that wasn't 100% for kids. But they also didn't want it to be not a kid show. So like they obviously censored Deathstroke's name and called him just Slade, and that was fine. But it's like,
Yeah, I thought that world was fun.
yeah,
You know,
it
I
was.
like that it was like, great, let me see the Teen Titans universe, but with boxing gloves on because we don't want to have Deathstroke and stuff like that. But that character still does all the Deathstroke stuff. You know what I mean? It wasn't like he was a good person.
Yeah.
Teen Titans Go is its own thing. I'm not here to shit on that show. I think that's a really fun. It's really great that that voice talent all got to keep working with characters that they were established. Like, that's really great. It's just we never got more of the Teen Titans show I liked. So even this, as I watch this little segment, it's like, man, we're never going to get this. We're never going to get the cool, fun, angsty teenage Teen Titans again. We're only going to get these 2 slots of it.
Yeah. It was super weird. But this episode, it was really fun because, I mean, the episode crawls in and Zach is doing this really meta working out in his office kind of a thing, and he makes a 300 joke right off the bat. And then they're like, we want the Snyder cut, and they like name drop that, and he's like, oh, okay, let's do this. What do you want? Do you want the Leonidas? Do you want? And they have like a 300 style picture on the wall. They have a Batman versus Superman one on the wall. Then they have an Army of the Dead nod, which was pretty funny. And then they cut into the meat of the episode. Robin kind of blacks out a little bit, and you have
wakes up in a nightmare timeline.
Yeah, and that's what we got. We open up to Darkseid. And how is that not just the funniest? I mean, honestly, I think nobody expected to see that, right? You have
Right.
a scene pulled straight out of Zack Snyder's Justice League. You have Darkseid picking up the dirt like he did in the Nightmare, the battle, and then the Titans cut over, and they're all like grown up, right? But my favorite Easter egg of all of this whole bit, I mean, obviously they're all like same voice actors. They make all these little meta jokes like, "Oh, the color is darker. Oh, it's raining now for dramatic effect," and they do all this stuff. But my favorite little gag was Robin right there, front and center. His costume is the BVS costume, and that was the funniest thing. I was like, "Wow!" They went right into it and gave him the costume of the dead Robin from Batman versus Superman.
I like when Beast Boy just goes full dinosaur and doesn't turn into some lame bird and does cool dinosaur things for the 30 seconds that we see him on camera.
Yeah. But no, it was pretty funny. I liked the episode. I thought that little gag was great. You know, it was really funny. And the whole episode, it was a 3-minute little segment, and the whole thing felt like it was just a love letter to Zack from these animators. They made these little references. The fact that they even got Zack Snyder to do his own voice was fun. But you have the Titans that are essentially acting as the proxy for the writers, the animators, everybody, and they're like, "Oh my god, it's Zack Snyder! Oh my god!" And they're just excited about it. And obviously, they have to make their little fun little jokes. The whole joke at the end was that the Snyder cut was a haircut, not anything beyond that. But I guess the fallout from this, what was really interesting was following that episode, IMDb all of a sudden got just bombarded with just hundreds and thousands of fans just rating it a 10 out of 10. They loved the episode. They thought it was great. Let's show our love. Let's put 10 out of 10, right? And the episode now currently has no rating. They actually pulled the rating.
They removed the rating because they don't want people to know that Zack Snyder's fans are A, real people, B, not robots, and 3, are using the metrics of the internet to say, we want more of this.
That may be the case. The other thing, though, was that after the episode had maybe like 1,000 10 out of 10 votes, it got bombarded with another 1,000 0 out of 10 votes. And the votes all popped up, and everyone was in there saying, "I didn't watch the episode, but I don't want Snyder's fans to win." And it was just bombarding with harassment toward the fans.
That's just classic internet fighting. That's classic. I don't want you to have nice things. You're not allowed to have nice things in this house.
So it was really funny because like I'm looking through these reviews, and now the reviews have all been pulled. All the ones saying, "I never watched the episode, but screw you, Snyder fan." Those were all pulled, but now they're recalibrating the rating system after they've did this culling of reviews. And I think it's honestly hilarious that Amazon had to basically be like, "I can't do this." And they had to like get involved and pull that out.
What would you rate if you watch the whole episode? What would you rate the episode? Is it Is it above, better, average? Is it above average of other episodes, or is it on par with other episodes?
You know, I think it's above average. I mean, it's not quite a 10 out of 10, but it's also not like a 7 out of 10. Like it's a straight 8.5, maybe a 9 out of 10. It was a fun episode, and the fact that they had this little meta joke in there was just fantastic, and it was a lot of fun. They let Zack Snyder have his fun and everything, and I enjoyed it. I mean, it was a fun little gag. I don't know how many times I can say fun in that sentence, but yeah, it was fun.
I think the thing that needs to be debunked is that was all it was. They invited Zack Snyder to do this fun thing. He's not back. You know what I mean? Like, it's nice to know that there is a presence within there that wants to salute him and play with him, but like, he still has other things to be doing right now. He's not going to be, this doesn't open the door. I mean, it makes me sad. because he's such a visual guy, he could very well do an animated movie and literally just go, here's the animatic for the movie. I'll give you notes on it.
Another fun thing that I saw was that whole sequence that was done, the nightmare sequence, was actually directed by Jay Oliva. And Jay Oliva is he's a prolific director in DC animation, but he's also the guy that worked with Zack in all of his movies and all of his storyboards, and was like the animatic guy for Zack. Aside from directing like the Flashpoint movie for DC animation, aside from directing all that stuff, he loves Zack. He's a great friend of Zack. And I love the fact that he was the one who came in and directed this thing, which was great. But one thing that kind of happened simultaneously over this last week was Jay went on a Twitter rant on a bunch of Snyder fans. And kind of what you said there, it doesn't mean Zack is back. And I think this whole thing kind of pointed out to that exact thing, because that's what he was saying too. In this big rant, a bunch of fans were basically dumping on Gail Simone. She's a writer for DC, works on Birds of Prey. She's very much a social justice warrior. And in the past, she's given her massive support to Zack in the movie, but she's also been very hypercritical of certain things. And a lot of people tend to just not like her, which is what it is, right? But over the course of the last week, after our last show, I think it was actually the day after our show, this big rant happened. And then it was kind of like a call to Jesus moment for the fans, where he got in an argument with a very prominent Snyder fan. And they were like, I can't support this. I can't do this. And he basically is like, let me see if I can pull up what he actually said to there, because there was so much of this Twitter rant.
What do you mean you can't support what?
So he basically said, I can't tell you how to feel. And frankly, you can hate on whoever you want to. But when I hear the terms Snyder cult or Snyder bots or any number of them directed the Snyder Cut movement, I don't take it personally. Nor do I think that they're talking about me or 90% of the other Zack Snyder fans. When the media call us bots, what do? I make a joke saying that I'm a bot and then proceed to post a Transformer picture. Life is short, and I don't have the patience to let petty crap get to me. And we should all celebrate what we did as a fandom. And then they kind of argue saying, blah, 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 blah. They call us bots. They call us bots. He's like, well, thank you for your input. But my question is, why don't we as a fandom clean up our shit? Like you just
100%.
Right? And then he goes on saying, it has gotten out of hand lately. There's a reason why we are referred to now in a negative light as opposed to a positive driving force to get a director's vision released. Unless Gail directly affecting you affecting you day to day, then who cares what she tweets or comments? And so he goes on. She and a lot of other people are reacting to a problem prevalent in our fandom. We need to change the narrative and call those out in the fandom who go too far. I'm going to be honest here. There are elements of the fandom that have already painted us into the dark age and undermined everything we have fought for. And then like everyone's like, oh my God. And then a lot of these toxic Twitter people started attacking Jay for this. And then it was the weirdest thing is like Jay is essentially the most vocal person on the internet who supports Zack. He works with Zack. He loves Zack. They hang out at his house. He knows what Zack, like his opinions are essentially Zack's opinions. The difference is Zack is too much of a nice guy to say these things, and Jay doesn't give a hell. Like he just does it, right?
Jay is hitting on something here. Listen,
right?
The new daddy just showed up at Warner Brothers and goes, hey, what do you got? And they go, oh, these neighbor kids are crazy. They keep coming over here. They scream the same thing. Okay.
Oh, well, and then it keeps going. It goes.
Don't invite that kid over to the house anymore, right? Like that's what's going to happen.
This thing goes for days, right? And then they're like, and he says flat out, because after the next day, they keep commenting on this thread, and he's like, then we need to clean up our image and call those out who have been giving us a bad rep with the fandom. We used to stand for artistic integrity and freedom as well as suicide prevention. Now, all I see on Twitter nowadays is is attacking X because they called us names. 100% of the fandom worked hard to get that film released. There is a very small vocal minority that is undermining what we accomplished by being toxic. I have eyes and ears, and it's not just from my friends that I'm hearing it. You do realize I work in Hollywood, right? And then as this goes on, I'm hearing it brought up in business meetings now. and the narrative that's being perpetuated by the media doesn't mean it's true, but it's getting out of hand. They are not going to invite Zack back unless they see clear financial gain. And Zack isn't going to be coming back unless they make him a really great offer because of after the way that he was treated by the old regime. It's all business, and our rep as a fandom will keep that from happening. That right there, that tweet to me was probably the biggest giveaway, right? Because you have all these Twitter scoopers now who are like, oh, Zack is coming back. Zack is working on these underlying deals. Zack is doing this. And then Jay, one of the people in Zack's camp, is like, they're not going to do it unless this happens. He's not saying it like in this hypothetical way. He's basically saying there's no talks currently happening, but they're not going to have these conversations until we clean our shit up.
So how far does this kick the can down the road? Like 5 years before this becomes a group that they want to interact with? Because like, it's great knowing that there's a built-in audience here that wants to buy these things. That's great. But the question is, are they going to throw the baby out with the bathwater and just go, nah, never mind. You go to Netflix, Zack Snyder. We're trying to get J.J. Abrams back, which was funny enough. His name popped up on that Constantine 2, and we were just talking about getting J.J. Abrams working on some DC properties again.
So what I don't think it kicks the can any further. I don't think it does anything else. I said before last week is that the biggest issue that the movement is having is that, I mean, we fought for years to have the Snyder Cut get released, right? And then all of a sudden, after like one movie comes out, boom, everyone is expecting the Snyderverse to be restored after a week, right? I mean, we obviously knew it was a long shot to get Zack back in the room to begin with, and patience hasn't been a huge thing for a lot of them, I guess. But one of the big things is that, like we said before, in multiple shows now, Warner Brothers Discovery is cash poor right now. They've only got on hand what they have on hand. They can't afford to make a big tentpole movie. They can't afford to greenlight a Justice League 2 right now. They can't afford to greenlight really anything until they see success for the projects that are on their way out the door. So when people are saying, oh, they're having the secret deal with Zack, they can't have a secret deal because they can't afford to have a secret deal because nothing that they've worked on is out yet. So for Zack to have his chance, for Zack to have a further relationship with the studio, to get Justice League 2, to get the rest of his story put out, the stuff that's coming out next year has to be successful. And then they have to see a merit in doing it. They're not going to...
They've treated him so poorly. What do you mean secret deal? Like, if he goes back to them, he is going to ring the loudest bells and tell everybody, hey, this is what I got. This is what the standard is for me to come back, because it's going to have to be high. They jerked him around so much. And I mean, for lack of a better term, they didn't want to pay him, right? They were like, we don't really want to use your ideas, and then used all of his ideas. And everybody who then made these movies went to him and said, hey, man, what are we doing here?
Yeah. Like, and that's funny to me, right? I mean, Aquaman, they canned Zack, they prepped the filming, and then they still followed 80 to 90% of the film that Zack and James Wan had planned together. And now Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom is happening, and we know that for a fact that Zack's plan for the Aquaman sequel with James was literally Aquaman gets the Lost Kingdom. I mean, when I did that first video together, when we did the Justice League 2 storyboards, those storyboards referred to Aquaman uniting the Lost Kingdom with the rest of the kingdoms. Like, it was part of the plot line. So they obviously, like, they don't want Zack, but they loved his ideas. They just don't want Zack. It was such a silly idea. But now we have all of those people are gone now. We have new management, and the new management is trying to fix things, right? But they have to have the money on hand first. Zack is still tied up with Netflix, and he's probably going to be tied up with Netflix for a while because he's still working on Rebel Moon Part 1. They've already talked about Part 2 happening already. So unless he's filming that right now, he's going to be busy filming that after he does his Army of the Dead sequel, his Army of the Dead animated series was supposed to be announced by now, but it should be coming out within the next 90 days or so. We have a lot of stuff that is keeping Zack very busy. So him coming back for one episode of Teen Titans Go, voicing himself for literally 2 minutes of dialogue, does not signal for a second that he's back in the room with the management. That means that the animators loved him and they called him into a voice acting studio.
Also, didn't Discovery just bitch slap the animation department? And I wonder how much of that. See, what it sounded like is they were cutting back on projects, but I wonder part of that was like, hey, man, don't invite our ex-girlfriend over here unless we say it's okay. Because he was back in the building.
Oh, they cut down the projects before they even got Zack in. That was separate. The new management is not anti-Zack. They're not pro-Zack. They're just cool. Alan Horn, however, the guy who's, I guess, seemingly running DC until they find somebody, he's actually a big fan of Zack's. He's a friend of him. Like the car that Zack had, the one that Bruce Wayne drives, the BVS, that silver Aston Martin, that's actually Zack Snyder's car, and that car was a gift to him from Alan Horn. So they're friends. So it goes within reason that Alan Horn's going to do something and want Zack's input. But the reality is that Zack is locked in a first look deal with Netflix, and he's so busy that the only thing he could really afford outside of his filming was 2 minutes of dialogue for a Teen Titans episode, which he probably recorded at his house and sent to them via like a zip file.
Right. Is Teen Titans Go still in production? This is obviously their 365th episode. Mazel tov to them. Do they have another season happening next year?
They do. What we know from like this last week, right? We had this. Another big thing of news that happened last week was that Keanu Reeves' Constantine got a sequel.
That's what I was, and J.J. Abrams' name popped up on that all of a sudden
because he's going to be producing this project. However, the J.J. Abrams Justice League Dark Universe, the one that included a reboot of Constantine, a reboot of Swamp Thing, a reboot of Deadman, Madame Xanadu, all those projects, that show is seemingly dead. And that project died due to creative differences and so on. But along with the announcement that the show is dead at HBO Max, they also announced that, and just like in a quiet footnote, that just like Batman Cape Crusader, the animated show from Bruce Timm, J.J. Abrams, and Matt Reeves, this is going to be shopped around. If Netflix wants to buy it, they can buy it, and DC will produce and Netflix will distribute. Because what we now understand is that David Zaslav and Warner Brothers Discovery, what they're trying to do is gain capital. And where they were not succeeding with in what HBO Max was doing, they know that they can succeed with licensing, like what they did with Sandman, because Sandman was a big success for them. Whether or not it's a big success for Netflix is another story.
Is a huge success because multiple people in my family that aren't into that genre, because it's comic books, but it's very dark. It's different dark than Stranger Things. It's in a whole different realm. Multiple people have sung its praises to me and go, are you watching that show? So like hearing that they don't have a season 2 deal, I'm like, yeah, we'll take it somewhere else. I love all that. That's great.
Yeah. And that's kind of what's happening is that Warner Brothers is 100% okay with licensing the characters off so that they can regain capital. And maybe, and really, like this is exactly what Marvel did back in the early 2000s, right? Marvel was bankrupt, right? They sold all of their film rights to everyone and their mom. And then in 99, Fox put out X-Men, and boom, the superhero renaissance happened.
There's a great movie. There's a great documentary about the Roger Corman Fantastic Four movie that was made and was basically only made so that they could continue to have the rights so that they could make another one a couple years later.
Yeah.
And basically made a whole terrible movie to shelve it because they knew it was going to be bad.
Yeah. And that happened a lot. I remember that. And I remember seeing that bootleg, and the bootleg movie is ridiculous. There's like very, very few special effects seen, but I remember the Things costume being very impressive for like a garage filmed movie. But no, that was a real thing. But that brings up the same point. Like a lot of these companies, when they came in and they bought all these rights, they had just kind of like, they brought Marvel back from the dead, and DC is kind of hoping that will happen right now too. That doesn't mean any of the projects will be owned by anybody, but it means that they're licensing out certain avenues. Like, oh, if Netflix wants to make a Batman TV show, we will make the show with them. If Netflix wants to make a Sandman show, we will make it with them, and we will get a cut of the profits while they do all the heavy lifting. And that's how licensing is going to work. And that's probably how licensing is going to save DC, because this merger, it showed everyone that Warner Brothers was broke. And Discovery went broke buying it and firing all the people that ran it into the ground. So if Discovery is going to have an honest to God chance, they have to get some capital, and fast.
Can we nerd out about what Constantine 2 is going to be? What do you think Keanu Reeves wants to do with it? Because he's going to have a huge, much like Tom Cruise, he has a huge say in his films now, even more so since Matrix onwards. I mean, John Wick is all him. He trains and gets all those people and gets all of that put together.
I know that Keanu loves the character of Constantine, and I know that he wanted to make the sequel for every year since the last 17 years.
Right.
One thing about Constantine, someone was, when I made the tweet about it, and I was like, this is happening. Oh my God. People were like, I've never seen it. Is it good? And I'm like, yes, it is very good.
Yeah. It's not a superhero movie. It's a great, weird, dark anti-hero movie. And they do a lot of good stuff in the movie.
Yeah. But the one thing is, it is very unique, because Constantine, the movie with Keanu Reeves, is essentially like the Batman 89 of the Constantine mythos, where it doesn't follow any of the rules, doesn't follow any of the guidelines. Obviously, Constantine has black hair. He's not British. He's not blonde. He wears a black coat instead of like the burlap coat, whatever the brown coat.
Shia LaBeouf drives him around the town.
Yeah, Chaz is a teenager, not an adult. You don't have the magic and the werewolves and the ghosts and the monsters. You just have like angels, demons, and Constantine right in the middle. Like I remember when we first saw it back in 05. I think it was 05 or 06. When we first saw it, I remember we were driving somewhere with your mom, and your mom leans back and she's like, I saw that Constantine movie. And that was probably the most Catholic movie I've ever seen in my life. And I remember like hearing her say that. I'm like, you know what? I kind of see what you're saying, because Constantine wasn't really that. I mean, Constantine was from Neil Gaiman, and Neil Gaiman is essentially agnostic, but uses as much religion as he can. And he didn't prescribe to one version of any of Constantine's Christianity for Constantine's depiction. But that show was like super Catholic. So it's very interesting that now we're going to go 17 years later, and obviously John's not dead because the devil took the cancer from him. So we're going to see a very different
Spoilers.
Spoilers on almost a 20-year-old movie. If you haven't seen the movie.
I know, but can Tilda Swinton come back, or is Marvel going to keep her away from this?
Okay, we'll do this. Spoiler alert for a 17-year-old movie. At the end of the movie, Gabriel loses its wings, becomes a human. The devil gives John a second life, pulls the cancer out of his lungs, and says, when you mess up again, John, I'm going to get you. And does all this whole like really cool devilly stuff. And then John parts ways with the one girl, Isabel, I think was her name.
Rachel Weisz?
Yeah, but her character, wasn't she Isabel? Or
yeah,
she was a twin in that movie. She played two different roles.
It's so funny that when we talk Constantine DC, I forget about all that stuff, because this is the Constantine that's so alive in my mind.
Yeah.
You just answered what the movie's going to be. He's going to fight ghosts and werewolves. He's going to go, hey, he's going to go, he does that Keanu Reeves voice. I'm Constantine. I used to fight demons. Now there's they're all going to be there now. Yeah.
There's got to be something weird, right? And I would love to see more, like, I liked the really weird version of hell that they had, but we didn't see any demons except for that, like that one scene where the bat wings fly across the window, and he's like, "Oh, they're coming."
He puts the one demon in a glass. He puts the lady at the beginning of the movie. He goes in the
The
glass,
mirror,
and then he's got to push the glass out the window.
Yeah, the mirror scene. That was a really cool scene. And then there was also the bug demon.
Oh, yeah.
So I really hope we get some more of the weirdness of like some of the more I would love to see like a demon push through that doesn't have half of its face gone, but has like the horns and everything, and it comes out. It's like, I'm coming for you, John. The boss wants you to mess up, and I'm going to make sure you do. I would love to see kind of a further push on that world. Maybe mix some of that mythos in with what we got in the movie and stylize it a bit. I would love some of that. Sure, let's get some werewolves. Let's get some vampires. Let's get some weird stuff in there. I'm ready. I want to see it. I want it to be worth the 17-year hype in my mind. So
I totally hear you. I'm going to let you know that if this Constantine 2 movie comes to fruition and is significant at all, there will be rumblings of a Spawn movie happening very soon. Because I feel like they share very similar cinematic universes.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the Spawn movie has been, they attached Jamie Foxx to it, and like every year they're like, it's still happening, and it's been like 5 years. I feel like Constantine coming out and being successful will allow that movie to exist, and I'm all for it.
It's funny. The Sandman has a very particular view of Satan and hell, and all of that stuff was a wonderful world to go play in. Now, it's not the same as the Constantine world, but it was. All of that stuff was super palpable. That's one of the best fight scenes I've ever seen.
Right. I am the anti-life and I am hope. Like that was that was such a cool sequence.
Which FYI, that is the thesis of all the Zack Snyder movies. If you want to know the real answer, there's the anti-life equation, and Superman and Batman are life. I mean, that's everything. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. When I was watching that, I'm like, okay, so Zack is clearly a fan of Sandman because you have Darkseid's whole motivation to go get the anti-life, and what trumped the anti-life was hope, and Superman's whole, in my world, it means hope. And I'm like, so Superman is the key to defeating Darkseid, because that's what I'm seeing here. Zack Snyder loves himself some Neil Gaiman, and Zack Snyder threw that in there, and I want it so badly now. But it was such a hell of a thing. I don't know. I mean, Sandman was the blueprint originally in the comics. Constantine, his character, was supposed to have spawned off of that book. So the Lucifer that he dealt with was supposed to be the same one in Sandman. But what we have is a different world here. So his Lucifer is not the same. Did I lose you?
I'm back.
Okay, weird. Did anyone cut out? Did I cut out anybody? Can anyone tell me if I was still a completed sentence before it cut out?
Where are we at, chat?
Why is my internet?
I heard that it was Constantine was a break off of this world. It was a shared thing.
Yeah, and the devil in that world was supposed to be the same one in his project, but what we got in the movie was a different world. So it's the same as the Lucifer TV show, because the Lucifer TV show was a sequel to Sandman, and it was its own thing. So we very much got a different take on a lot of this stuff.
I think they're got to continue with the same Constantine cinematic universe. I think they're going to add more monsters and say they're all from hell. Like you could have ghosts and just he has to I'm not a Ghostbuster, but he clearly fights ghosts. Yeah. Just have more portals or something.
Yeah, I mean, one of my favorite scenes in that whole movie was his tattoos, and he did the into the light I command thee, and brought them together, and then basically used his tattoos as a summoning circle to pull out a what he was expecting was a demon, but to pull out a hidden entity into the real plane. And I thought that was such a cool thing, because even in the comics, he's got somewhat similar tattoos on his arms, but this John didn't have the sleeves like the normal Constantine does. So
he's got to be a little bit better, right? He can't just spend the past 17 years getting lung cancer again. He's got to be like done something okay with his life.
I would love to see them just come back 17 years later. Now he's got more tattoos, more of this, and he's like, I've been preparing because the devil's throwing more shit at me. And that be like the setup. He's like, I'm not smoking, but the devil's trying to make me slip up. So I have to prepare. So he's got more tattoos. He's got more weapons. He's got more like all this stuff. And he's grifter. Like he's more like worn down because he's like, for the last 17 years, I've tried to not screw up. And the devil's pushing it harder every day.
I like that. He's been on the streets. Like he's been going from one town. He doesn't want people to know where he's at.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm reading some of the comments right now. I wish there was a sequel for Batman Chris Nolan movies with Joseph Gordon-Levitt as Batman. I would love that too. I mean, there was a lot of fun fan pitches where the fans pitched like a Batman Beyond style movie with Joseph Gordon-Levitt. That'd be kind of cool. Probably never going to happen because Nolan is done with that world.
Nolan's done with that because of all the information he just gave to everybody at the end of that last movie. Right? The fact that he's robbed, like all of that stuff was just him being like, okay, I'm done. Here you go. This is what it was going to be, but we're done. We're not doing any of this now.
Yeah. Any true to the rumors of Comcast merging with WB? No.
Not in America. A court's got to look at that. That's way too big.
Not a bit. So, and that's referring to an article that came out a few days ago where it was 100% an opinion piece, and they said it was an opinion piece, and they said hypothetically, if WB doesn't start making money, you could see Universal or Comcast coming in and trying to buy them, and it was all hypothetical. And now all of a sudden, it went from like them saying this is possibly what could happen, as them just kind of like playing the hypotheticals, to Twitter saying, "Oh my God, it's happening," and then to Instagram and everyone else and their mom saying, "Oh my God, did you hear that this is happening?" I really hate it when the trades they hypothesize something because they really freak people out.
There's someone over here talking about in the TV spot. Black Adam says, "There's nothing on this planet that can stop me." Think it's Superman?
Yes.
But like in my mind though, in a world of boob tubes, it can literally be anybody. You know what I mean? Like they have instant travel. It's like in my mind, I want it to be Green Lantern, but it's not going to be.
It's not going to be because Green Lantern lost pretty heavily toward Black Adam. Superman doesn't.
We were talking about Nolan. Christian Bale says he would come back and would only do it if Nolan is game. Nolan doesn't want to make those movies. Nolan's out.
Yeah, so we're probably not going to see it happen. And I mean, last time I think we talked about it briefly. I watched Thor: Love and Thunder, and Bale was probably the best part of that movie. So Bale
creepy.
still has it,
like a creepy carnival barker when he's scaring those kids like a sideshow man.
Yeah, like that whole black and white sequence when he was like basically going at them one at a time. I was like, such a cool scene. It was so well done. It made me so mad that scene was in Taika Waititi's movie.
I enjoy his comedies.
I do,
but I can see your criticisms of this movie because Thor is a silly spaceman now instead of the might and thunder that he once was.
And I mean, kind of going right back into it. My favorite Thor movie was the first one. And I know a lot of people didn't like the first one because for whatever reasons, but I loved that it was very much a Shakespearean take on Thor. I loved it. I thought it was amazing. I watched it last week with my son because I thought it was great. I needed a palate cleanser after Ragnarok and Love and Thunder, so I went back to that one. My second favorite Thor movie is Infinity War because Infinity War is a Thor movie. If you watch it, it's 100% a Thor movie with the other Avengers as the footnote. But that's what it is. Let me see. I'm just reading some of these comments. I like this one. I bring back Papa Midnight. I hope Papa Midnight comes back because that actor was very much an unknown when he did Constantine, and now everybody knows him. So he's in Guardians of the Galaxy. He was in he was the merman, like the Merman King in Aquaman. He was the Wizard Shazam in the Shazam movies. Yeah, I would love to see him back as Papa Midnight. That scene with Constantine and Papa Midnight was one of the best scenes in the movie.
Constantine's a good movie.
Such a good movie.
Is that in question? I mean, I'll rewatch it. Maybe we need to do a rewatching of it and really sit down and go through the beats because I guarantee you there's some like 2006 cinema. The fact that Shia LaBeouf's in that movie, he was in like the 3 other movies that year until he was in Transformers, right? He did iRobot, he did that, he did Holes.
Yeah, and then but one fun fact, do you remember that there's a post-credit scene for Constantine?
No. What's the post-credit scene? Oh my God,
really?
I don't know if I've ever seen it. I mean, I might need to go watch the movie.
Okay. I'm gonna blow your mind hole a little bit. It's the best. So remember, in the end of the movie, Chaz dies. Gabriel kills him.
Yeah.
At the end of the movie, he's at Chaz's grave, and Chaz comes down as an angel and is now John's new guardian angel.
Cool.
And Shia LaBeouf is there, like he looks like all cleaned up. His eyes are glowing yellow, and I'm like, oh, I need to see this movie. So I really hope that he comes back because I mean his character's dead, but I want at least a 5-second cameo where Shia LaBeouf comes down with angel wings and says, "John, please stay on track. I'm vouching for you," and then just leaves. That's all you need. It's like just that little moment.
I'm glad to know that Constantine 2 is happening, but here is a movie driven by a star. And I feel like as we circle the ships right now with Zack Snyder, until those casts demand him to come back, I think that they will work with whatever scripts they give them and whatever direction they want to go. And I think that's going to be the name of the game for a while.
Yeah, I like I said, I believe fully that Zack is probably going to come back in a producer capacity, but I don't believe that he's going to be back as the director anytime soon. The fact that Ben came back for Flash and Ben came back for Aquaman is a good sign that at the bare minimum, Ben is on board with the new direction they're going, which means the direction that Alan Horn and all them are pushing forward in Zack's absence is enough to sell the person who said he would never come back without Zack on the project. So to me, that's a big win. But I see Henry coming back if he's given essentially script input like Keanu Reeves. Like if he gets a Keanu Reeves level kind of a deal where he'll come back if you allow me to approve things. I could see that happening. The Ezra situation is like every other day, someone's like, oh, Ezra's been fired. And the studio's like, he's not been fired. Stop. So we'll see what happens. Gal's not going anywhere. And Jason is not going anywhere either. Until they're done with him, obviously. But let's see. If Zack, I'm just reading some of the comments, everybody. If Zack ever came back for anything, it would be to do his dream project, faithful adaptation of The Dark Knight Returns with a new cast. I remember him mentioning it. I would love him to do a Dark Knight Returns style thing, like a straight 1-to-1 adaptation. That'd be fun. And just give him a bunch of older actors. Like in that project, you could have John Hamm be Superman because it would work. But I lost Michael, unfortunately. I think his computer finally crapped out at him. So hopefully he comes back in. Let me see what happened. Coming back. We lost you. Oh, he just texted me separately. But no, I don't think Ezra's out. I think that's kind of what everyone is everyone's alluding to right now, and I don't think that's the case. And Michael is back. Yes?
Yes. We're we got to ramp it up. We're running into every problem today. Nothing is working.
And yeah, there's a comment here. What was that one tweet I saw from some account saying Ezra's out either way? The tweet was from My Time to Shine, which didn't really make much sense given that he had them winning with Warner Brothers Discovery. Yes, so that's the So My Time to Shine is a fantastic scooper, has a lot of stuff right, but from my understanding, she was a former Marvel employee in some capacity. She has a lot more right than she does wrong in terms of these things, but in terms of DC stuff, I've seen her say things that are a little outdated. And then the fact that Warner Brothers had this big meeting with Ezra, and Ezra is now filming new scenes for the movie, leads me to believe that the news might be a little outdated. So I don't think that it's as up to date as possible. So I think right now it's kind of a wait and see thing. I don't think the studio has decided to fire Ezra, because I think legitimately Ezra is getting the treatment done right now, going through the motions, living up to their end, and I don't see them dumping Ezra after making an agreement that if you do this, we'll keep you, kind of a thing. Like, I don't see that happening, because that's shit that the old management did, not the new management. So we'll see what happens. Another comment: should we get a revival of Nightmare on Elm Street 2? New Line really sucks at conjuring movies. I was never a huge fan of the Nightmare on Elm Street movies. I thought the premise was cool, but they never quite got it right. I think you and I, when we were younger, we saw Freddy versus Jason.
Yeah, we
And
did. We did go see that movie. Oh
Yeah,
boy, did we see that movie.
we saw. I think it was because Blake wanted to see it, right? Wasn't that the reasoning? Like, Blake was like, "Let's see this," and we're like,
it was a movie you go see with a group of friends, and we went with a group of friends.
"Yeah," and we were like, "I don't know how I feel." I told him, like, I haven't watched these movies. I know the base premise. I don't like horror movies, and we saw it, and I'm like, "All right, that was okay." Like, I wasn't like against it, but I wasn't like, "Hell yeah, this was great." I've never been a huge fan of them. I think the closest thing to like that genre of horror movie I got was always the Sam Raimi, like the Evil Dead stuff. That was the closest I really got to those. I really wasn't a fan of the Michael Myers Halloween movies, because I thought either it was too cheesy with him just walking down the hall being all menacing, or holy crap, he's walking at 1 mile, like 0.25 miles an hour, and now he's behind you. I thought that was stupid.
Those movies are all over the place. There's 4 of the same movie, and then there's 2 movies that have crazy premises, vibes through the TV and stuff like that. That franchise is all over the place.
I don't know. Horror movies are good when they're B movies. That's fine. Conjuring movies have been successful, so they're just going to keep making those forever. But I don't know. We'll see what happens. But I think at this point, this last week we got Teen Titans with Zack Snyder, and it was a wonderful little break and distraction from everything. But I just want to reiterate to people, this does not mean for a second that Zack is having conversations with WB because he did the voice. That doesn't mean that for a second. And anyone who's trying to tell you that that's what that means, they have no idea what they're talking about. Because you can be hired for a gig to come do a voice and never meet with anybody beyond the voice work team. That does not mean that you went back on campus. That does not mean you went back and walked down DC Studios. That does not mean you walked into the office of Warner Brothers Discovery. It means that you were hired to do a voice of yourself because the team that was doing that project wanted you to do it.
Taylor's so right that he recorded this in his bathrobe in his home office, and probably did like 3 takes max for all of these things. Like, I you know what I mean? Yeah. Okay.
So I mean, Zack has a studio at his house, right? We know that because he has a home theater. He has the equipment to film a Green Lantern scene on his driveway. And then when that scene wasn't allowed to be made, he had that same equipment to film the Martian Manhunter scene in his driveway. So Zack has sound equipment. He probably just recorded it. I mean, for all we know, Zack is still filming Rebel Moon out wherever he's filming it. They asked him to do the voice, and he sat down with his AD team and said, let's record it, just like they did with Ezra filming their scene for the nightmare scene with Ezra coming in the flash. That scene was filmed on the set of the Fantastic Beasts movie. Ezra was never present for the reshoots. They did it separately. So, I mean, realistically, Zack probably never even stepped foot back on the Burbank lot to do that voice work.
Right.
But
that he's got it. I was going to say, he's good. Right.
But I cut you off. What's up?
All right. Well, he's got a
More dead air? Damn it. What is going on with our stuff today? Anyways, well, everyone, we will wrap it off there because for some reason our tech is just fighting us today, whether it be on my side or Michael's side. Not sure what's happening. But either way, we kind of said what we needed to say. The Zack Snyder episode of Teen Titans Go was fantastic. It was fun. Doesn't mean anything more than that, other than the fact that the people who make that show love Zack. Simple as that. But thank you all for joining us. Thank you for checking out our Patreon and supporting us for those of you who do. If you don't support us yet and you want to, head over to patreon.com/theculturednerd. Again, my name is Taylor Murphy, my co-host Michael Santel, and our slew of supporters. Thank you all so much for helping us do what we do. And we will see you all next week. Thank you for joining us. Scan that QR code and we will go and see you then. Thank you, everyone. Hold on. Michael's back. Say your thing.
Bye, everybody. I'm sorry. We'll fix it for next time. Bye.
We'll fix it for next time. I don't know what happened, but thank you all for joining us. Boop, boop, boop.